Hello, everyone that is joining. I think we have a full house today. Happy Friday. If you have no work this weekend, hopefully many of you don't. We are located in Maryland. I don't know if any of y'all are on the East Coast, but after some rain and some super humid weather, we are now finally in some beautiful fall weather where it is 71 degrees and sunny. So I am actually going to kick us off. I know people are still joining, but today we are here to talk about the arts. Our conversation is going beyond the canvas and exploring AI's impact on fundraising for the arts. I'm Sarah Tedesco. I'm the Executive Vice President here at DonorSearch, and I'm also a minority owner at DonorSearch. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I have about 16 years of experience. I've worked with all different kinds of clients and really enjoy working with those folks. So yeah, feel free to chat in the chat here in Zoom and share where you're from. That'll make it a little bit more fun and interesting. So here we go. So for today's discussion, I'm going to first do a quick introduction to DonorSearch. We'll talk about the industry status as well as what we're seeing in the arts and trends. And then we'll move into this new technology that's become so much more readily available to nonprofits, which is artificial intelligence, and how we can use AI to build connections. We'll also talk about some key takeaways and answer any questions that you might have. And then for those that are new to DonorSearch, we actually have a little gift for you. So with that, let's get started. So I wanted to give a couple of shout outs to some of these amazing organizations that we work with, including the Smith Center in Las Vegas, Blue 13 Dance Company, as well as the Saratoga Performing Arts Center, where they really gave some great insight into how they've used DonorSearch and how they are really doing some amazing stuff with the DonorSearch tools and insights that are available. We've also pulled together some information on how you can use the Testatura integration if you're one of those arts organizations that use that CRM. And then, of course, those that are focused on ticketing and membership organizations, you can hear from those folks. So major shout out to these wonderful organizations and the work that they're doing. And I hope you get a chance to hear some of their stories. And thank you, Adam, for including them in the chat as well. So, all right, with that, a quick introduction to DonorSearch. So we are based here in Maryland, but we're actually have folks working remote all over the country. Our values are focused on excellence, quality, innovation, collaboration, integrity, and growth. And we truly believe that you can't really accomplish one of those values without the other. Innovation has been really key to our success even since the beginning, where we created the single largest philanthropic database in the world. That was really what's distinguished us and separated us from other folks in the industry that were still concentrated on wealth. Today, we provide AI solutions as well as still this high quality and excellence of philanthropic data, as well as support and client success to all of our organizations and partners we work with. So our mission statement is to provide premier donor search or donor intelligence to solutions to nonprofits of all shapes and sizes. We work with not only arts organizations, but healthcare, higher ed, membership organizations, really anybody that is working to enhance their fundraising program and to strengthen their financial capacity. So we are actually still family owned and operated. This picture was taken from AFP Icon in beautiful, I think this was New Orleans. Yes, New Orleans, just this year. Funny how time flies, right? We currently serve over 10,000 active clients. We have 40 different CRM integrations, and we process over 50 million records a month. This is important. So if you have a CRM like Bloomerang, Donor Perfect, Virtuous, Tessitura, Salesforce, Little Green Light, any of those kinds of CRMs, DonorSearch actually has an integration that will help you operationalize the data and insights that are useful for your fundraising needs. Currently, like I said, we work with over 10,000 different nonprofits. Here's just a few of them and what they have to say about DonorSearch. And we currently work with about 900 different art organizations. So that's really helpful if you're looking for a community and trying to understand, some of the best practices that are in place and how we can overcome some of these challenges that are unique to arts organizations, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Additionally, DonorSearch is very focused on thought leadership. If you haven't attended one of our mastermind series, I highly encourage you to do so. Some of these also offer CFRE credits, so they're free. You just go onto our website and you can register and hear from thousands of different thought leaders who are sharing their best practices and how we can do better in this nonprofit space. Also available on podcasts, as well as we have several different blogs and resources which are available on our website. And then, of course, if you're going to a conference or if you're part of one of these great membership organizations like the Giving Institute, APRA, AFP, AHP, Partners in Mission Case, or even the new Fundraising AI group, which just created a responsible framework, we are all a part of that as well. And we'd love to hear from you if you're there. So with that, and of course, if you have more questions about DonorSearch, please feel free to ask or just send us a note on our website. But with that, we're going to go right into our discussion today. And I thought we would start off with this beautiful quote from Henri Matisse that says, creativity takes courage. And I think that's really where we are right now, is that a lot of organizations are, just starting to get creative with the technology that they have, the data that they have, and are understanding, that we need to do something new. When you think about data analytics and modeling, it really is about this art and science that comes into play. So that'll hopefully set the tone for us. So first, just an arts overview. So how do we feel about the arts? And of course, if there's something else that you think should be included here, feel free to type it into the chat. But when we think about arts integrations, it continues to play an important and vital role in our society. They provide benefits to our communities, including enriching our lives. They provide us with a sense of beauty, joy, inspiration. Of course, educating us, it can teach us about different cultures and perspectives, also brings us together, helps build and connect with us in our community, and then, of course, making our communities more vibrant. So these are just like some of the reasons why we have the arts, right? And why they're important to us, in the United States and also as a culture. When we take a look at some of the fastest growing sectors in the arts, performing arts is the one that is actually growing the fastest. It has grown 14.5% in 2020 to 2021 and is up 230,000 workers. This growth is due to a number of factors, including increased popularity of live entertainment. People are looking for new ways to experience live entertainment, also new technologies, such as a virtual reality or augmented reality. So even seeing some of this new technology that's available being incorporated into our arts. And then, of course, increasing diversity in the performing arts. So it's one of our most resilient sectors that we've seen, and it's been able to weather a lot of the challenges of COVID-19. And again, when you listen to some of those stories, you'll actually hear from people who were able to overcome those challenges. And a lot of that is making sure that you continue to move forward and that you don't get stuck, right, into kind of these old habits or old ways. Other sectors in the arts that are also growing quickly are the visual arts, media and entertainment, literature. And these are some of those organizations or those organization types that will continue to foster this sort of sense of excitement from folks. So while we all know that the arts are a vibrant part of our culture and we believe in the arts, and so many of you are working in these amazing institutions that we value, right? We are seeing a bit of a decline in the arts sector from a charitable giving sense. So it's estimated that there's about 123,000 different arts, cultures, and humanity nonprofits in the US. And those organizations are receiving about 5% of all of the charitable giving that is contributed by donors in the US. When you take a look at it, 2022 annual report, which came from Giving USA, and if you're not familiar with the Giving USA report, I highly recommend you check it out. It is the go-to report for understanding the philanthropic trends that are in our industry and how things are fluctuating or changing over time. But what we saw was that it decreased by 7.5%. So this is something that there's a couple of different reasons why this could have happened and things to take into effect that we'll discuss. But it's something to keep an eye out, right? Who wants to live in a world without art, right? It's critical to our education, building community, all of those things that we talked about. So when we think about this decline, we have to look also at this overall giving decline that we're seeing in this Giving USA report. So overall, the total US charitable giving declined in 2022 to $499 billion, I believe from $537 billion. And what that meant is that we actually saw 2.5 million less households giving in 2022. So that individual giving decline was actually 13.5%. So it's one of the first times where we've ever seen it drop from what's traditionally made up the giving at 70%, and it's dropped actually down to 64%. So in any sort of standard or grading criteria, right, that's a D. So that doesn't look good. A C before was passing, and now we're at a D. Some of the reasons why this could be happening, right, is that there was stock market drop. We saw inflation, some economic uncertainty that perpetuated this decrease in charitable giving. But from a perspective, we've only seen total charitable giving fall 3 other times. And that was in 1987, 2008, and 2009. And those were all different points where we saw economic downturn or some sort of crisis that was going on. So it's not to be ignored, the circumstances of the past couple of years. The challenge here is that when decreases in giving happen or occur, this can affect the ability of the nonprofit to meet the needs to fulfill their mission, right? So when you think about the amazing organizations that you work with, it's going to be more challenging to meet those goals as giving declines. Generally speaking, when we think about who gives to the arts, this is where we think of our traditional sort of demographic. So a baby boomer, someone born between 1946 and 1964, they're our most likely age group to give. These are high income earners, urban dwellers, people with children, interested in the art, college educated, typically white, and they're more likely to attend art events, donate to arts. Not much has changed over time, right? And that's what we're trying to convey with this painting, a study for patrons and lovers by art. It's this sort of traditional way of looking at who is wealthy and who will give to my institution. When you look at other age generations, right, the Gen X, which was born between 1965 and 1980, they're also relatively a large donor group, and they're more likely to give to the arts than the millennials, which are between 1981 and 1996. And then you have this other group that's coming through, which is that Gen Z, which was born after 1996. Where we're not seeing too much, but there's potentially this this opportunity to engage folks, right? To engage these younger generations that will inherit more wealth as time goes on. So when we think about going beyond the old ways, right, like these traditional ways of looking at wealth and looking at who these donors are, we need to go beyond, sort of what's in our mind frame, right? So what we're seeing with a lot of great organizations is that they're focused on these DEI efforts, focused on creating a culture of inclusivity, diversity, equity, and what you're achieving by this is you're also achieving more interest, right? You're gaining new people to your museum, or you're gaining new people to your theater, or to visit your organization and purchase tickets. By doing so, you're creating some sustainability. You're also able to create this legacy that is going to help that, financial sustainability within your organization, as well as broadening the pool of interest, as well as is potential donors. So it was important for us to also make sure that, when you're thinking about who you're looking at, right, it's not just these superficial markers of age or, the demographic information and that kind of thing. You want to also look at having a foundation of understanding, what those markers of philanthropy are. And so this is a foundation. This is, a starting point for understanding who is likely to give to your nonprofit. This kind of information can come from a screening that you're doing with DonorSearch. It can come from, an one-by-one lookup, any sort of modeling that we're doing for you. But it's looking at who's giving to your nonprofit, right? So obviously that's going to be the most predictive, are those people that have already given to your organization. And then that second most predictive marker are going to be those that are giving to other organizations. So folks that have given, $5,000 or more is actually the most predictive marker beyond just giving to your organization. When you go past that, we're looking at those folks that are the trustees of foundations. So, are they, when you approach them, are you identifying two different ways that they can contribute to you, right? So if you ask Sarah Tedesco for $500 today, I'll probably say no. But if you go to the DonorSearch Foundation and ask for $500 through Sarah, she'll probably say yes, right? So it's this understanding of different capacity as well as different affinities that that foundation or those people of influence have. Additionally, also looking at political giving, so those folks that are giving to FEC, that has a high correlation of those folks that are going to be able to make a major gift in the future. In fact, when you find people that have given cumulative to FEC of $15,000 or more, it's a 5, 6, and 7-figure gift that they have also made to another nonprofit. Real estate is also important, but as you see, it's fifth in line here. It's not the most predictive marker, and I think we're all well aware of this, right? Is that it's helpful in understanding potentially what their wealth is, but you're going to have a lot more information than just, the market value of that home. As we know, real estate is quite volatile. It fluctuates over time. People inherit homes differently, and sometimes they share those properties with multiple families. But it is a marker, and what we've seen as like a kind of a universal marker is anything that's $2.5 million or more is going to be wealthy for that area. That's kind of a universal standard. You can, of course, focus that in and narrow that down even more so by just looking at like the averages or the median household income or house averages in your county or in your state and look at it that way. But again, it's not going to be the marker that's going to tell you how likely someone is going to give to your organization. You're basically just going to learn about, the property that they have. And then our sixth marker here are those that are identified as having a business affiliation, those that are SEC insiders, or in other words, at the policymaking level of a publicly traded company. These are great prospects as well. It's only about, I think it's like 2% of the population are SEC insiders. And then those pockets of people are in the New York area, California area, Florida area. Again, that information is public, right? So we are able to see, what sort of holdings they have, and how that those potential funds could be used for a gift. But again, it's not necessarily telling you, are they going to be able to make a gift to your organization? So these markers are a great foundation, and sometimes your donor is going to hit, or your prospect will hit all of these markers, and they're fantastic. Or sometimes they're only able to hit a couple of them. Again, it's a great way to understand, what sort of, donor database or constituency that you're working with of patrons. So going beyond, this, we want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we hear from our arts organizations that we work with. So the first one is this, the topic here is changing landscape. And it goes without saying that the landscape is changing quite dramatically pretty much every day, right? We're seeing new information, maybe something new is happening in the politics world, or maybe, something else is going on at that state or federal level. It just depends. But what we're seeing is that overall, the arts organizations, or many of the arts organizations we're working with, are still overcoming challenges from the pandemic. Arts organizations were hit really hard, as you know, when the pandemic happened, and some organizations were able to pivot, and they were able to go digital and, broaden up their pool of interest by making their art more accessible, right? We saw folks that were doing the virtual museum tours, which was pretty amazing. And there were just different ways that people were able to adapt. But many organizations were unable to adapt, right? That depended completely on that live interaction, the event-based fundraising. And some organizations were not able to adapt to those changes. We also saw and heard about a lot of staff layoffs, right? This was pretty much universal, but having to do more with less. So not only having less resources and people to communicate with these donors that are wondering what's going on within the organization, you're struggling with all of the other things that are going on. We also see a competition for donors. So mostly what we hear is that arts organizations, the donors that are giving to them, are pretty much local or around the same area that they are geographically. And if there's other arts organizations or competing, nonprofits for those donors, there's, you have to be able to cut through the noise. You have to be able to get that messaging loud and clear to them and getting their interest. So how do you make sure that you're bringing in, loyal donors and keeping them loyal to your nonprofit? We've also talked a lot about acquisition of new donors. So maybe you've lost some folks, and it's all about, like, how do you open up that pipeline? How do you make sure that you're getting new interest? Some of this comes from those DEI efforts and, appealing to a next generation. Some of that is also about how those means are happening. Like, how are those efforts occurring? Is it through a different, sort of is it a non-traditional way of engaging folks? And then, of course, some of these sustainer programs, so that way that there's a strong foundation in place. We also are talking about how people have changed in their giving. So, moving online, there's also peer-to-peer fundraising. What are the best ways to make sure that the marketing efforts that you're doing and the communication, personalization that you're employing is actually bringing folks in? And then one that we hear a lot is about these siloed databases. So having your ticketing system in one place and then having your donor database in a different place, and trying to understand comprehensively, what is our ideal donor? And if we need to expand or, acquire new donors, how do we even go about doing that? Because some of that engagement data is in a totally different system. So these are just some of the things that we hear about. And I'm sure many of you have your own sort of unique challenges, but as a whole, there's this changing landscape, and how do we approach these challenges and make sure that we're overcoming them or doing the best that we can. So overall, the arts are resilient, right? So we have this better technology, we have more data than we've had before in the past, right? And there's this decline in charitable giving. So how do we do it better? Well, the first thing is starting to understand, that shape of philanthropy. So, we talked about this sort of like traditional patron of the arts. We've talked about, where we would like to see these increases. We've talked about, um, some of the challenges that we have. But how do we really begin to know who are these donors that can contribute to your organization, and you can build these lifelong legacies? Additionally, time is your most valuable resource, right? So if you're working through multiple CRMs, how are you being effective with your time? And did, the person that you are going to do the outreach to start to build and connect those relationships with, are they actually not your priority now? Did something change within your system, or did their engagement or interaction with your institution change potentially that that level of interest or engagement that you should be having with them? So this is where we start our conversation about with AI technology. So this is, of course, a very hot topic for so many folks. And, DonorSearch, we're very proud of our machine learning as well as our DSAI team. We actually introduced AI at the beginning of at the end of 2019, excuse me. So actually right before the pandemic hit. And, when we talk about AI, it is basically the simulation of human intelligence processes by machine, especially computer systems. And what that means is we're taking out the limits that the human capabilities have, and giving it limitless capabilities to the computer, to the machines. And what it does is it's able to process more information more effectively. So the for-profit side has been using AI for years. So for 20, 30, 40 years, right? And it's used for enterprise analytics, social media outreach, policy analytics, decision support, data integration and visualization, assessing and improving data quality, and data collection services. You guys are interacting with AI pretty much every day too, right? So when you're buying something from Amazon, that transportation, those logistics that are being calculated in order to get your package on time, they're all using AI and machine learning. Healthcare, of course, is also using machine learning. In fact, we saw this during the pandemic, right? That COVID vaccine was created using AI on the Pfizer company. We also see it with banking, actually, trying to detect fraud. It's just capable of so much more. Travel, what are the best suggestions for you? Real estate, e-commerce, all of these things that we encounter and that we've been, consuming over the years, over the decades, all these systems, all these for-profits have been using AI, because what it does is it accelerates the search process, saves them time and money. You're able to think outside the box, right? You're not doing all of this super labor intensive data mining that you would have to do without the machine learning. So if we were all together in real person, I would be asking so many more interactive questions, but this is one question I like to put in these presentations, because it just asks, this general question. So what is your relationship with AI? Do you interact with AI in your daily life? And do you use AI at work? And I don't know if you guys can still use the chat, but feel free. So Jory, yes, hi Jory, in real life and at work, smart. And lots of other people are saying both. Yep, both. That's awesome. So what we're seeing here, right, is this adoption of generative AI as well, and some folks that are able to use this data analytics and AI in their processes. So when we took a look at this survey in 2019, and I encourage you to examine it, it's really great. And we'll actually, I imagine there'll be a new one coming out shortly. Is that you interact with AI every day in your life, right? You're constantly retraining models and algorithms by the choices that you're making. So when you're on Netflix, or you're purchasing something on Amazon, or you're using your phone, or typing in, a search into Google, all of that information that you're inputting, that's recalculating and updating different models that are available. In 2019, when this question was asked, do you use AI at work? It was reaching less than 23% of nonprofits. So with, ChatGPT and Bard, Google AI that have all come out, we've seen this very quick adoption and sort of like rush to use it, because people are seeing that it's making their life so much easier. They're saving them time. There's all of these great benefits to using it, and it becomes a little less scary. When the question was asked about how do you feel about it, what we saw is that 75% of people believed AI makes their life easier. And, it'll be interesting when we see the new study that comes out to see if this number has actually increased, right? 73% of nonprofits believe that AI innovation aligns with their belief. 83% of people believe there needs to be an ethical framework in place before wider adoption. And then 52% of people say they're afraid of AI. When you think about this ethical framework, there's a lot of conversation going on right now about the ethics, and I encourage you to search for Fundraising AI, which is a new institution, I guess you could call it, of innovators, experts in the field that have all created this framework of responsible AI. And they'll actually have a free conference in October where there's all kinds of different panel discussions and conversations about the use of AI. We're also seeing this ethical adoption in politics right now too, right? The White House just released or started collaborating on their framework of what responsible AI is. And, there's plenty of conversations about how people are afraid of AI. Which is why we're putting in so many of these ethical frameworks in place, right? Like there needs to be some boundaries and some, considerations put into place as we begin to use this. So different ways that nonprofits are using AI at work. So we're here to really focus on prospect screening and predictive analytics. But there's some other ways that you can use it. So it's also direct online giving, where Facebook, for instance, can make recommendations. You can automate routine tasks, schedule meetings, analyze data. There's plenty of those note takers, right, that can come into a meeting and help you with your action items. You can keep in touch with donors, with different chat bots, personalized outreach and donations appeals, and of course, detect fraud, which we were talking about before. So plenty of different applicabilities here when it comes to basically, these methods of how you can use AI, really. So AI is the part that powers what you're trying to do. There's also been several conversations about, will AI replace me? I don't want to bring this into my organization because what will I do then? That sort of thinking can be really limiting, and it is really limiting. A different way to approach it is to think, AI will not replace you, but people using AI will, right? It's this super powerful technology that can, make you so much more efficient, effective, and save you time. Somebody that's able to bring that resource into house and is able to harness that power, right? They're going to be in a better position than someone that is not using AI. So strongly recommend and encourage to embrace this technology, which is why you all are here today. So what we're going to do is start to talk about how you can use DSAI in your shop and basically start to identify prospects and donors that can and will make a difference within your organization. So we talked a little bit before about those, major gift markers, those predictive markers. We've, before there were predictive markers, you're basically looking at who are my wealthy donors that can give to my organization and that have given in the past. But is there more? So the answer to this is yes, right? So we want to focus on giving levels, what people's capacities are, but we also want to break down these silos of data. So we want to break down, that ticketing information. We want to break down some of that CRM information. And what we also want to be able to see is how that changes over time. So, my relationship with, let's say the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, how has that changed over time? Has it increased? Has it decreased? Am I looking at their website more often? Am I going up there when I visit my in-laws? What sort of relationship do I have, and how is that going to progress with time? So this is where we start to talk about engagement data, experiential data, and then of course that philanthropic and wealth information. So when we think about this path to acceleration, typical standard models, which have been the foundation for how we've done our wealth screening and how we have looked at who we should talk to, has been looking at, the wealth information, giving patterns, and then of course, that internal data of like a recency and frequency and money. So RFM score, who's likely to give to my organization based on this static data that I have in place. The future of this machine learning is, not only just looking at the giving patterns and the wealth indicators, but also looking at big data sets like demographic information and the experiences that they have. So it's not limiting it just to 1 or 2 or 3 different databases. It's looking at it as a whole of, what is the big data on your donors, on your patrons, and prospects of who is likely to make a gift soon. So some ideas for the engagement data, when you think about your arts organization, is, taking a look at the donation history, looking at donor preferences, what is their attendance history with your institution? What's the travel time that someone takes to come to a performance or come to a gallery or an event that you're having. Also taking a look at, the tickets purchased. So is it, how much are they spending? How often or frequently are they spending that money to purchase these tickets? Additionally, taking a look at that social media engagement that they have. So if you just put out a video of a performance, or maybe you had some of the actors talking about a show or maybe a backstage event, that was posted on social media, what sort of engagement do those folks have with your social media page? You can even bring in things like the website activity. So how often are they going to your website? Opening or clicking on the emails that you're sending out to them, right? So this is starting to break down some of those silos of information. So what sort of marketing communication, what are the subject lines, what are the messages that we're conveying to folks? Questions about survey responses. So, did you have a survey that went out about a question, asking what they would like to see next or what they thought about a certain type of show, what's important to them? Gift shop purchases as well. So, do they have, several of your t-shirts, your sweatshirts? Did they buy some swag at every performance that they go to? Are they buying, things for their children or for their grandchildren? looking at that sort of family involvement. And then, if there's any opportunities for volunteering or events or galas that they've attended. So these are just some of the ideas and some of the data points that our clients are sending over to understand what sort of engagement that their donors or prospects are having with their organization, right? This goes so much more beyond, how old they are, what race they are, how much money they have. We're talking about what their affinity is and what their engagement is with your arts organization or your humanities organization, and how does that change over time, right? So a quick visual of how this might look is taking a look at all of these different data points. So when we bring in all of the data, it's over 1,000 different data points, and on average it's about 150 data points per person. So when you think about that, there's this realization that people are complicated, right? Like that we're complex and that you can't just single us down to, 20 different factors or 10 different factors, which is what traditional models have done in the past, right? Well, they must be, a certain age, they must, live in this zip code. They have to have given to your organization this much in the past. There's no sort of limit on how we can look at your donors and how you can look at what they're capable of doing. So the other side to this is you're not prejudicing the individuals based on these data sets. So there's no bias. We don't choose what data points by pre-selecting the field. So no two boxes are the same shape or size, and they're not equal in prediction. But what we're looking at is we're trying to understand, okay, by not being biased, what characteristics of donors or non-donors are quantifiable, right? How do we understand what is important to you and who is likely to either make a gift in the next 12 months or someone that is new to your organization that are a prospect likely to make their first gift here. So the benefit too of this, acquisition model is that you're looking at it separately than your donors likely to give. So there's no negative impact or an individual penalized from the giving data of a donor who's already given to your institution before. So when you take it a step further, that information is then dynamically updated, right? So how has each person's connection or engagement changed over time with your organization? Each connection and engagement, of course, is specific to your nonprofit, but is today my connection with the Boston Museum of Fine Arts stronger than it was 10 years ago? Is it looking like it's going to continue to stay strong, or does it look like I need to come back into the museum or open up a new piece of mail or be sent a video that's going to increase my engagement again? There's hundreds of different ways or forms of engagement that can be predictive in helping us understand who is likely to give to your organization. In fact, one of the cases where we were working with a musical organization is that it saw that one of the predictive markers was that the distance someone was willing to travel based on what day of the week. So it shows affinity. As somebody who's willing to travel 30 miles during the week, they're willing to drive by other nonprofits, right? They're willing to drive by other arts organization, making you that preferred organization. So those are just some examples of the insight that's possible when you start to break down those silos and bring that big data together. So it's much more insightful than just saying, okay, well, this person is of that certain age group, of this certain ethnicity. So in the past too, traditionally, models that were sold, only about 2 or 3 models were run per organization, whereas we're running about 2,000 to 3,000 models per organization. So it's constantly being retrained. There's constant communication going on with your organization and the DSAI team. And what you see is that the DSAI group goes through each variable to see which combinations are most predictive. And the technology is designed to be most accurate, so that way you're focusing on groups that have high likelihood as well as high wealth, right? And it's looking at all of this information so that way, you're not limited to just, what you might call prejudiced assumptions. Additionally, this sort of matrix here, this is what most of us are used to when we think about how we're prioritizing our donors. This is sort of that foundation that we come back to after we look at the big data. Which brings me to my next slide here, which is just a quick snapshot. And I encourage you, if you're interested in learning more, to request, a demo on how it works. But we have a unique data visualization tool that allows you to interact with your donors. So the orange here that you see, those are your prospects, and then the blue would be your donors. And what you're able to do is interact with that interface and drag and drop and see, okay, well, I want to know, my engagement information, this likelihood, and I want to combine it with my capacity. So I want to focus my efforts on those that are in this great box over here, that high likelihood and high wealth. So this allows you to truly understand your donor journey and build connections with people who care and are ready to make a gift. The custom and unique models are unique to your organization. So they're not going to be sort of the standard or universal model. They're going to be relevant to what's important to your nonprofit. So wealth is not really a great determinant of whether or not someone will give to your organization, just how much they will give. And with this new interface, you basically can do 4 clicks, right? You can pull what tickets they've purchased, what events that they've attended, bring in some of their previous giving history, break that all down, and spend 4 clicks instead of 4 hours on creating a report. When you couple this AI with a major gift strategy, you're able to focus your major gift discovery calls on those with high DSA ratings based on engagement. You can refresh your portfolio. So if you feel like maybe your major gift portfolios have been stale, or you want to make sure that it's updated, this is one of the ways that you can do that. You can also focus on philanthropic interests. So say you're interested in people that give to theaters and museums in a certain area, you can pinpoint exact keywords that are important to your campaign and prioritize based on those DSAI scores. And then, of course, plan your visits and events based on that information. So for those that are not ready to get started with, full-blown custom DSAI models, and maybe you're just interested in starting with, just kind of that entry level, what we recommend, and it's included in all of our packages of the donor search screening, is the MLR score, which is called the most likely to respond. And what this is formally what would be known as like an engagement score. And it's telling you, who is likely to respond to your solicitation. So instead of using a traditional static model of an RFM, which is, just how recently they've given, how frequently they've given, and total amount of money, what we're looking at is, your detailed transactions of giving, including gift dates, amounts. You're looking at email transactions if you have them, event participation, volunteer participation, and then we're bringing in, that big data, including the demographic data, consumer information, real estate, charitable giving, business, nonprofit information. And all of that is used to power what was traditionally once just an RFM score. You now also have this new powered machine learning score, which is looking at that relationship they have with you. Additionally, we have these insight scores, which are predictive. And it's looking at, if you're looking to build out an acquisition list, the acquisition model will predict which non-donors are most likely to make a first gift to your nonprofit. Retention models, so if you're focused on some of these donors to stay loyal to your organization, this predicts which first-time donors are most likely to make a second gift. Your upgrade model is, looking to see who's likely to make a single gift of $250 or more. And then your lifetime value model is looking at those who are at least going to give $1,000 in their lifetime. Sustainer scores are also available, which are critical, right, to the longevity of your nonprofit and can have some really great ROI. So this is looking at which donors are most likely to make at least 4 gifts in the next 12 months. So each donor is provided a sustainer score from 0 to 100, which represents the likelihood that they are going to become a sustainer. And then this allows you to quickly identify individuals that should be included in a sustainer growth campaign. So some options there on how you can incorporate machine learning and different strategies, marketing strategies into your organization. And then a quick synopsis of how it all works, right? So, when you think about all of these different components that I spoke about, you have your nonprofit's donor data, right? So those are all of those different engagement pieces. It's looking at, the history that you have with each of your donors. And then what you also have is the donor search data. So looking at the giving patterns, looking at wealth and giving capacity, volunteer information, demographic characteristics, all brought together. And then that's pulled together, right? So we're using our machine learning algorithms to give you specific predictions into who you should spend and focus your time on. So as we wrap up today, just wanted to end again with this comment that arts organizations are resilient and creative. And they're finding new ways to thrive, right? So we're seeing this in some of the art where there's new technology being incorporated. We're seeing it in the marketing strategies that are being incorporated, and we're also seeing it in the fundraising initiatives. So it sounds like this group is super innovative and open-minded, which is why you're all here today talking about AI and machine learning. And that's going to be something that drives, the success of your organization. When it comes down to it, developing strong relationships and connections are never going to be replaced, right, by machine learning. That is a human, special value that we each have. That's our superpower of making those strong connections. But what machine learning and AI does is it helps us prioritize who we should be talking to. And then responsible AI is going to be key. Making sure that we're not biased, making sure that we're using it ethically. As we continue on with this great new technology, it's great. It's important to be aware of what those, frameworks are. So highly encourage you to participate. And then as we finish up today, what I also wanted to give a gift to you is that if you are new to DonorSearch and you're interested in learning more, you can go to our website and actually fill out a form there and just mention this, and you can try a 200 record screening for free, as well as a 30-day access to DonorSearch online. So it's a great way to start to get to know how it works and what DonorSearch can do for you. So with that, I will stop our presentation here today. I really appreciate you all coming and joining. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you all have a wonderful Friday. But feel free to reach out to me either on LinkedIn or via email. I am happy to connect. Thank you all so much, and look forward to talking to you soon.